All right. Welcome to the Art of Type 2 Fun podcast. I am Karey, your host, as always, and I have with me tonight the infamous Aliza Richman, who just
And
finished the Odyssey of the VOG, which we are going to talk about tonight. Welcome, Aliza.
thanks, infamous. That's interesting.
Is that a negative connotation?
I don't
Like you're
know. I
notorious?
think, yeah, maybe.
I thought that when I was saying it, and I was like, maybe I'll get away with it.
You know you can't get away with
I
anything,
know,
me.
right? Awesome. So we are fresh out of like not even 24 hours from finishing, from Eliza finishing her race. But we're gonna talk about all things about the Odyssey of the VOG, which is a bikepacking race up in Oregon. But we're also going to talk about some of our recent adventures together and kind of how it helped Aliza prep for the VOG, or we'll see. I don't know. I haven't even heard what she has to say. So it's all a mystery. It might be a surprise about what we talk about tonight. But anyway, first of all, let's just touch base. Like, first of all, congratulations on finishing
Thank you.
and finishing in like super good time, like it's crazy. What was your total time?
It was 63 hours and 32 minutes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so tell us just a brief snip about what is the Odyssey of the Vogue?
Well, the Odyssey of the Vog is this bike packing race in Oregon. It starts in Salem and it's 350 miles. Um, it's put on by these two guys, Ben and Seth, who are fellow bike packers, and they live in Salem, so they are really familiar with all of the roads, especially the gravel roads out from there. And VOG, VOG stands for Valley of the Giants. And it's a group of old growth trees that is just west of Salem in the Siuslaw Forest. So they made this route. Actually, Ben posted about this route on his blog, which I stalked a lot at the time because he had really cool adventures and kind of gear tips and bike tips and things like that on it. And he talked about this route that he did, or that he kind of created, and he posted the route and just basically went through the Valley of the Giants. So I kind of took that route and made it my own route, and I did a section between Salem and Pacific City,
Hmm.
and just did it one way and got picked up. And we got to see the Valley of the Giants old growth area, which is really beautiful. But that was just one section of it. So this whole route goes through the Valley of the Giants, over to Pacific City, goes up the Pacific coast, from Pacific City up to Netarts Bay, and then over to Tillamook, which is where the milk and cheese and
It
ice
is
cream comes
really,
from.
everybody asks that. It is really where it comes from. There's
It's where
cows
it comes from.
everywhere, and it's
Yep.
where it comes from.
And the route actually goes right by the factory, and I went past it
Did you
on.
stop for some snacks?
I did not. I was I kind of spent a little bit too long at Denny's, feeling sorry for myself, which I'll go into that. Um, but yeah, it actually goes right past Tillamook, and then it goes to the Tillamook Forest, which kind of, again, more logging roads, kind of makes your way up and over to the wine country, the Willamette Valley of Oregon, which is where a lot of the great Pinots come from. We kind of wound our way through the wine country up again through some more big climbs and back to Salem. Total stats of this ride, 354 miles, and 32,770 feet of climbing, give
That's
or take.
crazy. Give or take. Not that you were counting.
Yeah.
And is that the stats that your Garmin said, or is that the stats that they said on the
So yeah, I actually
website?
wrote down my Garmin stats. Although I had my Garmin set on autopause, which unfortunately, when I was hiker-biking and
Walking.
going too slow, I didn't get any credit for that elevation. And there was one,
What a
there was,
ripoff.
I had a 1 hour hike-a-bike section on Sunday, uh,
Holy crap.
on a gravel road, and I don't think I got any credit for it. So I think it's like I'm missing like 1,000 feet. But the stats were pretty. I think I got like 2,000 feet more of climbing
Okay.
on my Garmin.
Yeah, so pretty accurate, but yeah.
Pretty accurate.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha. Still a lot of climbing. Oh my
A lot
gosh.
of climbing.
And going into this, what was you had a goal of time, and that
Hmm.
was
It was 60 hours.
60 hours. So
So,
so even with all your suffering, which we'll get into, you basically hit your goal.
yeah, I was just a little bit over it. Yeah.
3 hours off of 60 hours is not a bad.
Yeah. I yeah, I was overall I'm pretty happy.
Okay.
I definitely pushed myself harder on this race than any other race I've done.
Mm-hmm.
But I still slept. I still got like 4 to 5 hours of sleep both nights I was out on the trail. Um, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with the result.
That's awesome. Good,
Yeah,
as you should be.
yeah. Thanks.
So, um, okay, so knowing like, so I know you pretty well, but at this point,
Fact.
and for those who know you, and maybe even that have just heard you talk on the podcast before, like you, I would want to backtrack a little bit because like this, you have a few. Or you had a few, or you have a few like major events this year that you're like training for.
Hmm.
One of which was well, no, was was whatchamacallit?
Berkey?
No, not Berkey. So shoot, why can't I think of it? Oh, Leadville was last year,
Leadville was last year, yeah.
but that kind of started this whole shebang of like your like that was one of your biggest events that you've done as far as like racing. Correct is like
That I say like the Big Lonely is kind of where things
okay,
started.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that was
yeah,
the year before. And I did
right,
that as a duo with Deanne,
right.
which is actually very similar kind of style race to this. It's also in
To this one,
Oregon. It's
right?
also 350 miles. It's a little bit less climbing, but still like very rugged and out there.
Sure.
And but still took that race took us 74 hours to
Okay.
complete.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll get into that a little bit.
Hmm.
What? So I'm just making a little note here. Um, so as far as like, so what I'm getting to is like your training. First of all, is like kind of a question that a lot of people like how especially because I mean your job is a little bit flexible as far as you have to work a lot of hours when you work and it's demanding when you
Hmm.
work, but it's you also have some time off. So let's talk a little bit about like your training and if you've worked with a coach and like what has your training looked like this year going into these events. Um, and like really looking to like really push yourself and things like that in your racing and do you feel like it's benefited you? How do you think it's like shaped you as like both mentally and physically as a rider like
Hmm.
and especially going into this solo ultra endurance event?
Well, as you know, I probably talked about before on this podcast that, I had a knee replacement over 3 years ago at a young age, at the age of 40. And it was kind of like coming out of that, I wanted something to work towards and to stay fit. So I think it was maybe 2 years or a year and a half after that, I started thinking about doing that bike packing race, the Big Lonely, and also the High Cascade 100 mountain bike race.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and so, I'm not a young spring chick anymore, and I have lots of injuries. I've broken my pelvis in the past. My knee. And so I wanted to be smart about training. So I started working with my coach then, Emma Moranen. She's based out of Bend, Oregon. She's a professional mountain biker as well. And yeah, we work together, and I get my training plan from her, and she helps structure my workouts, and I like having the structure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've been learning a lot every year. I'm learning more and more like what that structure is like and how my body reacts to it and how I recover from it. I do have a very unusual schedule. I
Right.
work 5 13-hour shifts in a 2-week pay period. I usually do them kind of all in a row. I usually will have like one day. So I usually work 5 out of 6 days. So I essentially have 8 days off in a row every other week. And so I'm able to do a lot of training in that span, but it really isn't the best way to train. Like you kind of want to like spread your training out more. Also, I have like the days that I work, since I work 13-hour shifts, I really can't do
Yeah.
much more. I can't really train on those days. Um, so yeah, my training's a little unusual. I bet I could get more out of it if I maybe change my schedule around, but since I split my time, my job is in Portland, but my house is in Bend. It's kind of like the schedule I have to work with at the moment.
Hmm.
But with that, I think it's still been very helpful. I've definitely gotten faster. My power numbers have improved every year, and I'm getting older, and my power is improving, which is kind of cool to see.
Hmm.
Um,
Old woman
and
power.
yeah, that's right. Emma herself, I think, is like older than me, and she's
Yeah.
still in the pro
Still doing it.
racing against all the pros and doing awesome. She's kicking
That's
butt. So,
awesome.
yeah, age is
Yay.
just a number.
Exactly.
uh, so yeah,
So,
I
what types of can you talk a little bit about like the types of workouts that you've been doing? Because I think a lot of people think um, oh, ultra endurance, you've got to just always be training like these long hours on the bike and stuff like that. Like, is that all you've been doing, or do you do a lot of like interval type stuff?
honestly, I think the best thing, especially for someone my age and with our need to recover, is doing more efficient workouts that are
Hmm.
shorter and more targeted. And so I do VO2, I do a lot of threshold intervals. And usually my workouts are an hour and a half long. And I oftentimes just do them on the trainer because for me it's easier to like hit
Hmm.
those power numbers on the trainer. And then on the spans where I'm off, um, usually on the weekends, I do my long endurance rides. And usually those
Totally.
rides aren't structured, it's just time on the bike. And usually they're like 3 to 4 hours for each ride.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's just the balance between the structure and then the endurance rides.
Totally. And I think that's
Hmm.
super important to remember because I mean there is something to get like miles in your legs, and that's where like I think it benefits us like that we've been riding for a long time, for many
Hmm.
years, and that does come with time and experience, but also there's a lot to be gained in a short amount of time, like what you're talking about with like a focused, was it Mariah Moldenhauer that was talking about like her training, like her longest rides were only 4 hours and she did those periodically or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like she was out there and she won the Atlas, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
so it's, you can get a lot done for that short amount of time, which I think is like really almost a relief to hear.
Yeah, there's a lot of science behind it, and our
Hmm.
bodies like it needs recovery.
Right.
And if you're always like just trying to get as much out of it as possible, it's gonna not produce anymore. It's not gonna be able to build. It's just gonna start breaking down.
Totally.
So yeah, it's about being smarter with training, especially if you're busy and you have, full-time job and busy life and you're not a professional athlete, like you have to just balance those things.
Yeah.
And I think having structured training, and you don't have to have a coach to do that, like, I could just sign up for Trainer Road and, there's other programs, Strava or whatever, or not Strava, Swift, and they all have structured workouts that you can sign up for. And, but for me, I like the accountability of a coach, and also I'm able to like talk to her before an event and get her
Yeah.
advice about things. And she's been
Oh,
really great and helpful.
that's really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. So then so as part of leading up to this, so you did the Berkey, so you're able to train on like, in the snow and during winter months when it's raining up in Portland, like you're able to train for something and still
Hmm.
keep motivated and stuff like that, which is like super important.
Hmm.
Let's touch base because we never got to really touch base about the Berkey. Like, how was that for you as an event as a whole and just like your experience there?
Well, the Berkey was an interesting experience this year. Yeah, my training went great. And actually, a lot of my training for the Berkey, because it's still like an hour drive, hour plus drive to get out to the snow and, it's all dependent too on the conditions of the
Mm-hmm.
snow. If it's raining, that's not really great to go out. I actually did a lot of my structured training on my bike trainer for
Oh.
the Berkey, because it's a lot of the endurance, like VO2 threshold stuff is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so the Berkey, my training went well, but I got a little sidelined, or not sidelined, but I got derailed during my race, helping a man who had a really bad crash and
Mm.
maybe broke his wrist or shoulder. And it was pretty cold, and I had just taken my woofer certification, and so I was like being a helpful like
Obligated
bystander.
to,
So
yeah.
um so I got really cold, and like that happened in the first like 45 minutes of the race, and it was
Ugh.
a 6 hour race, right? It took me six
Yeah.
and a half hours to complete
Yeah.
it. It's a 53-kilometer classic cross country ski marathon.
Okay.
And I finished, I did it. It was my first time doing the whole Berkey, and I'm
Yeah.
proud of that as well, but it wasn't the time that I wanted.
Yeah. Oh. But you helped somebody in need, so,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. And I don't know if I would have, I'm wondering, like, I don't know if I would have been able to get the time or not,
Yeah.
but I
You
finished.
never
So
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Well,
good. And
that's
it was
good.
good winter
Yeah.
training. And it's so
Good.
fun and beautiful to be out on skis in the snow. So I liked all that too.
Totally. Totally. And then, so let's talk a little bit about, did you have anything between then and then when we did the White Rim Trail that like is part
Uh,
of your like big
nope,
events
not
for your training? Okay.
no, just
Okay.
training. I basically like I retired from the season for skiing right
Oh
after the
yeah, that's
Berkey
right.
and started bike training.
For the White Room.
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about because we were gonna do like a separate episode, but then this came up soon. So let's just hash out the White Rim because like
Yeah.
I will say like so White Rim was like training for you. You got a little bit of the warmer um, even though it was really great weather. I mean, we really couldn't have asked for better, except for the wind. But that is what it is out there. But like I myself, we kind of talked about this after the fact. But like I trained, I would say a moderately high amount. I probably could have done better. Um, but that's life. But I trained pretty hard for the white rim. Like I knew that it was going to be hard, so we did with my partner Patrick and then our friend Mike. The four of us had planned to do white rim in a day, and which is a 100-mile loop. For those who don't know, it's like 7,000 something feet of elevation gain, and it is doable in a day, and a lot of people do it. Well, a handful of people do it, and but it is hard. It is taxing. And we had a goal of like 10 hours ride time, and that we anyway. So we'll get into that a little bit, but like I trained for it. Like I was doing my intervals. I was doing like I could have probably done a little bit more long rides, but I was strength training. I was like doing the whole bit. And feeling like pretty good leading up to it. Like, riding with Patty, he was like, whoa, babe, like, you're looking really strong, all this stuff. And maybe he's just biased, but like, I was feeling pretty good. You know what I mean? And then, you're on your training blocks and like, I think potentially you were feeling pretty, like, we were feeling like, yeah, we're ready for this, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then the day came, and I mean, obviously, later we'd find out that I was getting sick, but I don't know, I'm not blaming it all on
No,
it,
you
but
don't know. I will interrupt you for a second. Just so you know, I got so sick after that trip. So
you did for real
if you
too?
were just getting sick and Patty was sick, like I think that it definitely contributed to your
Okay.
performance because I got so sick and was
Sick.
wiped out
Oh
for like
no.
and I got sick like twice in a week. It was weird. Like I got
Oh
kind of
my
sick right
gosh.
afterwards, and then it got better, and then I got really sick like a week later. It
Okay.
was
Yeah.
so whatever
I was
it was
like dog
bad.
sick. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I had to miss the whole week of work like after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so okay, well that makes me feel a little bit better. But yeah, so basically it comes down to it and we wake up and we're going, and at first we were fine because it's also like all downhill like the first 20 miles. We're like, this is going great. And then the business part of it starts, and I mean, I'll be honest, I had a hard time out there. And Aliza rode like a champ. Like we kind of had this like team mentality going into it that like we were like, okay, like we're gonna pretty much keep everybody in sight. We're gonna make sure everybody's okay. We're gonna pretty much ride together the whole time, make sure like nobody's left behind, like that kind of thing. And we kind of trade off who was riding in the front, and like kind of people would go ahead a little bit and then stop for bathroom, and all this stuff. So I felt like we did a really good job of like keeping ourselves together, especially because like sometimes one of us was having a hard time and then the other one would feel better at times. But um like how did you feel like your ride went? Like I felt like you, especially at the end, you pulled out really strong at the end. Like we ended up
Hmm.
climbing up Schaefer at the very end because we parked at the top of Schaefer, and you rode like you just were like Aliza won the race. Let's just say that it's not always a competition, but it is always a competition.
Um,
But like talk about how you were feeling,
so
how
I
you felt about the ride.
think the White Rim was a big mental like ride for me because
Mm,
it's kind of challenging, right? Because it's 100 miles and it's all like downhill in the beginning, and then you're like out there, and it's like you're like committed to the ride. Like there is like no other option but
yeah,
like riding out because
yeah.
there's no other way out except for going back out the way, you can't really go
Mm-hmm.
out the way you came either because it's gonna be just as bad. So, so I'll be honest, I was kind of struggling with the first half mentally.
Mm,
Um, but I just kind of like broke the ride up into kind of sections, and I was like in my head kind of saving myself for that last climb. Like that Schaefer climb, for some reason, like I was just very motivated to like get to that climb. And I was like not like looking forward to it. I wasn't like dreading it either, but I was like kind of looking forward to it. It was kind of a
yeah,
weird thing, like
you're gonna
mind game that
dominate.
it's like I played this game with myself. So it was like, yeah, it was definitely tough mentally in the beginning,
Yeah.
especially just being down there in the White Rim and just knowing like the miles were just kind of going kind of slow, and
Uh-huh.
it was wind, and there were some really steep sections. But I don't know, we were all together and we just kept chipping along, and I thought we were making like pretty good time. And thankfully, like I found a way to bring as much water as I did, and that
Yeah.
also helped my anxiety a lot because I
Yeah.
was able to drink enough. And because I that's my biggest issue. I'm not as heat acclimatized as you guys are, being
Mm-hmm.
in living in Oregon. So yeah, I think I just like had a good strategy with like food, with water, and just kind of pace like a pacing strategy. And I think I kind of
Totally.
stuck. I think I paced myself pretty well, and like kind of saving myself for that last climb.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the one thing that I've seen from writing with you, like, is how you've like learned more about yourself, or like, I don't know if it's necessarily working with a coach or just looking, like that kind of thing of, or like learning more about like how you pace well and like what you need to be able to do that. It's not an easy, it's hard lessons learned. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I learned from
uh,
you, Carrie, the master pacer.
oh, master pacer. but but sometimes, see, here's the thing though, and this is what I want to get into because this is one thing I'm struggling with, but I want to get into with you with a VOG because, like, for me, for me, it's like, well, we'll get into that. But I will say that like you did I mean, well, and also that's the other thing that, like, we talked a little bit about like either during the ride or before or after, I can't remember when we were talking about it, but like your nutrition strategy and stuff like that, like I feel like you learned a lot in like the High Cascades 100 and in
Mhm.
like those long races, like, and in the Leadville, like, can you talk a little bit about that, of like the things you've learned and like how you've been able to identify like what works for you and what doesn't?
Yeah, I learned my first year doing High Cascades, which is a 100-mile mountain bike race in Bend, Oregon in July, and it's really hot. It was like I've done it twice now, and both like were the high was like almost 100 degrees.
That's
So very
insane.
hot mountain bike ride, a mountain bike 100-mile mountain bike race. And so the first year I did it, I had, all the foods that I usually ate mountain biking, which was, like different bars and solid foods and like potatoes and like all this stuff. But when I actually was doing the race, I couldn't eat any solid food, is what I learned, especially because it was
Mm,
so hot. So I kind of learned that like I need less solid food and I just need the carbs. And so over time, there's all this research, 90 grams of carb an hour to 120 grams of carbs an hour. And I realized like if it's, like a Martin or a Tailwind, um, bottle carb mix or a gel, like I can
mm-hmm.
take in those carbs no problem. And actually,
Mm,
now I'm experimenting with making my own carb mix and own gels too, because it's
nice.
less expensive,
Cheaper.
but
Yeah.
a lot cheaper. And it tastes pretty similar to the Martin gels, which is nice. Not
Yeah.
the same, not the same like Jello shot
Jello
consistency,
shot
but
consistency.
yeah, but the taste is similar. So, yeah, I've just kind of learned that um, if all else fails, I always have that in my back pocket. Now, since like that, our white women ride, we wouldn't have that same intensity as a mountain bike
Right.
race, but I am able to take more solid foods when there's less intensity. So, but I still kind of counted out all the carbs and everything
Mm,
that I brought, and I had a carb goal, and I pretty much met it. I think I was taking
you
90
did.
grams of
Okay.
carbs an hour during that whole
Wow.
ride.
That's
Yeah.
why you were able to make it up the hill at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've just kind of learned and I've practiced a lot in
Hmm.
training. Like I practice eating those carbs in training. Even when I'm on the trainer, I always have carbs
Okay.
when I'm on the trainer
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Uh, it's because of my, I mean, if my ride's less, if my training ride's less than an hour, maybe I won't
Yeah.
have much. But
Totally.
if it's like, it's always, most of my rides are on the trainer over an hour anyway. So, so yeah, I'm taking in my 90 grams of carbs an hour on the trainer too.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Can you hold?
Mhm.
Okay. So that was White Rim. So White Rim basically. So we were talking a little bit afterwards about like I think it's important to recognize like okay, even though like again, I think you rode really well. Maybe you didn't. Maybe mentally, it was like you said mentally is very challenging for you. Me, I don't think it was it was mentally kind of a it kind of screwed with my head just because I had like trained so hard and then the day came and like I
Mhm.
said, I just wasn't feel like I literally felt like my legs were like lead and like I couldn't push hard. Like even if I wanted to, like I just didn't have it in me. Um and but then again the next day I felt like poop and then proceeded to get really sick that whole week. So I was probably there was a
Yeah.
reason why,
Well, Patty
and
was
so
sick.
yeah, Patty had been sick.
So,
He was just getting
yeah.
over it. I thought I got away with not being sick, but I don't think I did. And then well, obviously I did not.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to recognize that like it's easy to get like bogged down, I think, with the like when you train really hard for something. I think mentally it's like you want to come out there and like have it be your best day ever on the bike or your
Mhm.
best day on the trail. And sometimes it's just not going to happen. Like, no matter how much training you do, like, sometimes there's things outside of your control that your body just says,
Totally.
today is not the day. And
I will add a tip and trick that I
yeah.
learned with my lead up to the VOG,
Uh huh.
and which I also kind of realized with the white rim that may have been our downfall a little bit. And the thing is, I've learned this lesson many times before. It's like having that buffer day when before doing a big event, because we like had a book out there, and then we were looking for our campsite. We didn't find it. We had to go back into town, get a motel, and everything got shuffled around. And
Sure.
so we didn't get as much maybe sleep as we could have. It was a little more stress. We had all that
Mm-hmm.
driving, getting there. So I think if you like, if say it was like a race, and yes, it was still an important day for us. Um, and I think if it really meant a lot to perform well in the future, I think it's like having that buffer day.
Yeah.
Before the VOG, I had 3 buffer days.
Oh, nice.
I slept in. I made sure I got at least 8 hours of sleep a night. I ate, I rested, I drank. I had time, plenty of time to get my bike ready. My bike was all packed and ready like a day and a half before, which that's me we're talking about. I never am that prepared. I'm usually like fiddling. I mean, I still, of course, was fiddling the night before
Yeah,
because
of
that's how I
course.
am. I can't help myself. But I was like basically done packing. Like, well, I really prepared. I had a whole plan and I prepared like for days, and I made sure I was not working for like 3 days before the start of the VOG. And so that's something that I've also learned. Like, if it's a really same thing with Leadville, right? I went to Leadville 9 days before the race to
Wow.
help. Well, also because I wanted to
Yeah,
acclimate,
you want to acclimate. Yeah.
but I wanted just the time. I didn't want to feel stressed. I
Yeah,
wanted to
totally.
like make sure I had everything prepared and I wasn't um yeah, worrying about like little things or rushing and not getting enough sleep.
Totally.
I was trying to
Yeah.
optimize my body because like again, not young anymore. We're not old, but we're we're just the right age.
They were just the right age.
But you have to be a little smarter, like leading up to it, if it is
That's a good
important and
point.
if performance is important, which
Yeah.
it is to me.
Totally. Okay, so let's get into it then. So you trained for this thing, and like I said, like, you had your your Berkey, which may have been a key. Was that like a key race to you, or was it like a means to an end for this bikepacking race? Or like how were
So
you treating it?
I was the way I was treating the Berkey is one to do it and
Yeah.
complete a full Berkey, which I hadn't done before. But also mostly it's to keep different way to stay in shape in the winter, to train. It gives me something to train for in the winter. And I'm just kind of still getting into cross country skiing, and it's kind of the combo of things, just something new and
Yeah.
something to kind of check off a bucket list thing to check off the list.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say it's
Cool.
more just to kind of help keep me fit during the winter.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. And then you had, this other big event, which is, I think, also important is like it's hard, especially on the bikepacking races where it's so long, is like trying to find these like key things that are not necessarily a race or something like that, but like, something big enough to like almost simulate like that prep that you're gonna have to do and like the energy that you have to spend thinking about okay the course and like like all that stuff and everything. So let's talk about like the VOG and like coming up to it like yeah, so you got some sleeps and you prepped for it and then did you
Hmm.
like taper your training and stuff like that going into it?
Yeah, I had a taper, but I actually never like talked to my coach totally about it. But the taper I felt like was a little bit less than uh I previous tapers I've had. Because I
Okay.
did have, I think my last like hard workout was a week before. It was Saturday, and then I did have like an endurance ride I did on Sunday before the
Okay.
race, which I was like, I mean, I still tapered. It was still a taper week.
Totally.
And then yeah, I really focused. I had to work Monday and Tuesday, but then I was off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the race was Saturday.
Nice. Yeah,
So I had
that's a
lots of
good prep
time
time.
to prepare, to rest, to eat, to get all my food and everything organized,
Totally.
and to kind of minimize like the stress leading up to the race.
Yeah, super awesome.
Mhm.
How many women?
There were four women,
Okay.
um,
Yay,
and
ladies.
then Paige is non-binary.
That's right.
Um, but Paige also finished this morning, which was awesome.
Aw.
Yeah, so still finished
Yay.
under the 72, under the 3 day mark, which is pretty great.
Oh,
So
good. Oh, that's super
so
awesome.
all five of us, 100%,
Yeah.
I mean,
Finish rate. Yeah.
finish rate.
Yeah.
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 That's
So I
super
thought I was pretty
awesome.
proud of that. Like the men can't say
Right.
that.
Exactly. And I was like looking at the results and who had finished, and then I looked at everybody who had scratched, and I was like, "Are there any ladies?" Or like they, I was
Yeah.
like, "Nope, they're
Nope.
still going."
Yeah, we all finished. It was
Yeah.
really great. And I think, I mean, I don't think more than women have ever finished any other
Oh,
previous years, I don't think.
yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. And
Way to
then
go.
the first place woman, Emma, got third overall.
Whoa, what a
So she
beast.
podiumed overall for this race, which is
Yeah, that
pretty
is really
cool.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Hmm.
really fast.
For real.
And she got the
Um,
FKT on it as well.
oh yeah, totally. I saw
Hmm.
that. That's really
Hmm.
great. So
Yeah,
fast. Oh my
by like
gosh.
4 hours. Yeah, she crushed it.
That's so awesome. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your gear. Was there anything new that you were trying out on your bike
Yes.
or like on you?
Which, yes, I was a little nervous about it because I don't like doing things without practicing them beforehand, but
Mm-hmm.
I put a red shift suspension seat post on.
Oh, you did end up doing that for this
Yeah,
race.
like a week and a half before the race. And so I only did a
Ah.
few like shorter training rides on it. I didn't actually really get to practice it as much as I would have liked. But
Is it a dropper as
uh
well?
it's not a dropper.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's not a dropper.
Yeah.
But it definitely helped. I think my low back thanked me for it. My nether regions thanked me for it as
Uh-huh.
well.
Yeah.
Um, I saw Megan, Megan Hackenden is sponsored by Redshift, and she
Yeah.
uses the C post, so that kind of inspired me to
Very
go for
nice.
it.
You'll have
Yeah,
to tell her.
I'll tell her. Yeah.
You're my inspiration.
But yeah, I mean, because I rode a hardtail. I rode the Y Cycles Titanium S7 mountain bike.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bike that's supposed to be a 27.5, but I have it with 29ers
Mm-hmm.
on. I had 2.1-inch Thunderbird tires, which is like a pretty good like gravel plus kind
Mm.
of cross country mountain bike tire. Has really good rolling resistance is pretty good on it, and it has a little bit of grip on the edges. And yeah, those tires were great. I actually used to have my carbon fork on, but I switched it back to my suspension fork
Right.
for this
Okay.
as well. And
Yeah.
I'm never going back to the carbon fork for these types of events anymore
Yeah.
because it's just too hard on my. I mean, hands are still have numbness, but they're a lot better than they were after the Big
Okay.
Lonely,
Okay. Gotcha.
which I did on the carbon fork.
Yeah.
I did outer bar ends as well. I
Okay.
added
Yeah.
outer bar ends to the mix. I did inner bar ends and outer bar ends. And I also got two other new things. I got the tail fin long top tube bag, which was new for me,
That's neat. Yes.
and their sweet roll bag or their handlebar bag
Front roll. Okay.
system, which was also sweet because it has there's an attachment. It attaches to their, they have their own attachment that the bag attaches to and comes off and on the bag, on and off the bag really easily.
Okay.
And then on the attachment, they have these accessories that you can put your lights on. So they're elevated so
Oh.
that way they actually work because if it's just on your
Yes. Uh,
handlebar, then your bag is usually in the way.
That is my, I have not resolved that
Yeah.
conundrum on my bike yet. Yeah.
Tail fin, yeah, it's pretty smart. It's really good engineering,
Very
I
nice.
have to say. And the bag was great. It's waterproof. I got a little bit of rain on the ride,
Okay.
and everything stayed dry.
Nice.
So yeah, I was really happy with it. Um,
Cool.
I did the bivy.
You
I
did
know
the bivvy for the win.
yeah, I was texting the Funbassadors like the day before, still like wavering whether to bring my one person 10 or my bivy. And I
Mm-hmm.
did the Vivi and it was the right choice. Even
It was
though
the
it
right
kind of
choice.
rained a little bit that last night,
Yeah.
I'm glad it didn't rain any more than it did. But it worked out.
What bivvy do you have? Or did you get?
It's the outdoor resource helium Vivi.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it worked great. Yeah.
Awesome. Very nice. Oh, that's
Yeah.
super awesome. Yeah, I that's another thing I'm currently on the research for is a good bivvy. So good to know.
hmm Yeah. And then actually one of the
Awesome.
other guys on the ride, he had the same Vivi too, and he liked it too.
Oh, bivvy
Yeah.
twins.
Baby twins.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So then was this race, did it start in the morning?
Started at 7 a.m. on
Okay.
Saturday.
On
Yeah,
Saturday. Okay,
the
cool.
24th of May.
Yeah. Very nice. In Salem, correct?
In Salem, just outside Salem in
Outside of Salem.
like Oak Grove. Yeah.
Okay, okay, cool. Well, talk us through like so you had a goal of 60 hours, which how did you break that down? Like, well, yeah, kind of talk through like the kind of the pre-plan, like what you had on paper about like your
hmm
plan, stopping points, like how much you wanted to sleep, like that kind of thing, and then like what actually happened.
Yeah. My plan was to sleep. I knew I didn't want to go no sleep.
Yeah.
So my plan was to sleep about 4 to 5 hours a night. And that's
Yeah.
about what I did. I slept like 4 hours, a little more than 4 hours the first night and like 5 hours the second night.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so I broke it down. Like the first day, my goal was 119 miles with 14,469 feet of
Nice.
climbing. And I did it. I made it to where I wanted to
Isn't
make
that
it.
amazing?
I can't believe it. Um, yeah, it was
You just keep
so
pedaling your bike and you're gonna get there.
so Carrie, these climbs were no joke.
Yeah.
Like they were. long, like each climb, like there's these huge climbs that are like 2,000 plus feet of climbing in each go,
Yeah.
and some of them were just so steep, and the gravel was so coarse and
Oh
loose.
no. Yeah.
So it was just like super slow going. But I had a mountain bike,
Yeah.
and most people I think had gravel bikes
Okay.
and with not as good of gearing as I had.
Okay. Oh
So
yeah, totally. So
I
it's not
definitely,
just the tires that you're thinking about, or like the width of the tires and
yeah,
stuff like that. It's definitely the gearing. Yeah.
it was the gearing.
Oh.
I had my 1052 GX
Mm-hmm.
Eagle.
Mm-hmm.
Not the transmission, it's just the regular Eagle, old school, I guess, old school now.
Yeah.
With a 32 tooth crank. And yeah, I was able to ride a lot, a lot. I think I was able to ride more than most because I had the traction and I had the gearing. I remember actually there was this one section where I was getting to the top to a climb, and then there were these three guys. And there was like a gate that we had to like bring our bike up and over,
Mm-hmm.
and they like this one guy's approaching the gate, and he's like hike a biking, and I'm just like do like riding up, and they're like, "Did you just ride all that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have a
Yeah,
mountain
bitches.
bike." I was like, "Hey, it's not my
That's
fault."
awesome.
I mean, yeah, I had the heavier bike, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Serves
able
to
to ride a
serves
lot
you.
more. And as you know, riding with me, like if I had a choice to hike a bike or
Yeah.
ride, I will ride every time. It's
Yep.
just so much better for my knee, for my body. And
Yep.
yeah, hike a biking, especially on a loaded bike, is just
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
heinous for me.
I
So
wish I had some of your determination on that. I
yeah.
get off. Like the first thing, I'm like, okay, I'm off. It's time to hike.
No. But you're a runner
But
now,
I'm
so I
like
guess
a
that makes
speed hiker,
sense. Yeah, I
exactly.
know.
There have been many times recently, or like in the last year, when Patty's trying to ride. Patty will be riding something, and I'll just like be hiking right along next to him, and I'm like, if it's as fast for me to hike as it is for you to ride, then I'm gonna hike.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right,
Um,
continue.
so yeah, it's just, it's the first stretch it was like 40 miles and like what was it? Of course I made a Google Doc about with all my sections. But it was about 40 miles to the first resupply and I think it was like, I don't know, 4,000 feet. 40, it was like very much golden ratio. Actually, most of the ride, it really was golden on par with golden ratio, which is,
Okay,
if the people don't know, it's like 1,000 feet and 10 miles.
right.
And so that, it felt pretty doable on the legs. So the first resupply was in Falls City, which is where Black Rock is. We actually rode through
Oh,
Black Rock,
oh, fun.
and like one of the guys was like, "Oh, there's trails." Like, yeah, there's some
Yeah,
pretty
it's
gnarly
like some
trails
awesome
here.
trails. Yeah.
Yeah. But rode through Black Rock, which is also a really awesome mountain bike area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and resupplied in Fall City, and then the next stretch was like a 55-mile section with like 5,000 feet of climbing to get to Grand Ron, and I had to make it there by 8 p.m. because that's when the store
Mm.
closed. So it was a little bit of a push to get there, but I got there at like just after 7 p.m.
Oh, nice.
and kind of congregated. There were a bunch of other guys there. There were these two guys like Jasper and I think Ashton was the other guy's name. I can't remember.
Okay.
But they were like friends and they were doing the ride together. And then there was another group of three guys like Ryan and Anton and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they were all congregating there and right there, like one guy in one group and then Ashton in the other group, they're like both quit. They're like, we're done. We're
Ah,
not doing anymore.
what?
Yeah, they like finished in Grand
This is at
Ron.
the first
Yeah, well,
stop.
this was 90 miles, 95 miles
Okay,
in. So
95 miles in. Okay.
it was like 95 miles and like 10,000 feet of elevation. So
Okay.
it was a big
Yeah,
ride
it's a
so
big
far.
ride.
And
Yeah.
then and then it's at the bottom of the biggest climb of the whole route, which is like
Okay.
this 3,000 foot plus climb, uh, in like 15 miles, 15 miles. It's
Oh
like
my
3,000
gosh.
foot. Yeah, it was just a really big climb and it was about to get dark.
Okay.
So those two guys kind of quit, and Jasper was he finished, he kept going, but like his friend had the Garmin, so they had to like switch Garmin, and like he had to
Yeah.
so they like kind of were taking more time, and so I like left. I was like, all right, well, I'll see you guys ahead. I'm gonna get a head start and start going because I want to get done. So I start riding up the hill, and I rode by myself for like 3 hours.
Oh.
Because I think I left like right around 8 p.m. It was like 2.5 hours. I didn't see anybody. And all of a sudden I hear Jasper come behind me. And I was like, oh, hey. He's like, you'll never believe what I just saw. I just saw the biggest cougar right in front of
What?
me. And which means it was like right behind, like it was behind me.
Oh, shnikes.
He's like, and he was like, it was beautiful. And I was like, that's not how I would describe
Uh-huh.
seeing a
Seeing a
huge
big
cougar
cat at
at
night.
night. So I was like, let's stick together for a little bit
Yeah.
until we get to the top at least. And so, but so I was just a little bit behind him. So we get to the top, and he's like, where are you going to camp? And I was like, well, I saw there is this campground, this Hebo campground. And I was looking on Google Maps and looked like there was a little covered picnic area. And I think I'm just going to stealth camp in the picnic area.
Yeah.
So we get there, and so I was like, all right, this is where the campsite is that I'm going to stay at, and you had to like go downhill a little bit to get to it. He's like, oh, I don't
Okay.
want to go downhill. I'm just going to keep going. So he kept going, and I never saw him again.
Okay.
He finished like maybe like 5 or 6 hours ahead of me, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Um, so I camped, just did a little self camp at a picnic table.
Uh-huh.
And it felt good that there were like people around.
Yeah,
It was like
totally.
not totally by myself, especially with the cougar sighting up
Mm-hmm.
there. But yeah, I rolled out my bivvy, and actually had a really
Yay.
hard time sleeping that night. I got really sweaty from that climb,
Okay. Yeah. Like your
and I
body's in
just got
overdrive.
yeah, it was just a really big day. Like my total stats for that day, uh, like according to my Garmin, yeah, it was 120, like almost 120 miles and 14,469
Yeah.
feet of
Yeah.
climbing.
That's a lot.
That was what my Garmin
That's a
said.
lot. Yeah.
So it was a big day. My TSS was 586, which is pretty high. I don't know how accurate that is. I mean, they say
Yeah. Oh,
TSS is kind
yeah.
of like
Yeah.
a made up
Yeah.
number, but
But
as far
still,
as just in comparison to other
comparatively to
ones
the
I've
other,
seen,
yeah.
it was pretty high. So I got my like 4 hours of sleep, and it took me a while to fall asleep because I was just really cold,
Mm-hmm.
shivering in my little sleeping bag. But
Oh.
I did sleep. And I woke up the next morning at my alarm went up at 5, and I think I was rolling by 5:45, and then
Oh, nice.
but the I was it was like only a quarter way down of the big descent after that big climb.
Okay.
So I started the day on a descent.
On a
So I was
descent.
wearing everything. I was wearing my rain pants. I was wearing my puffy. I was wearing my rain jacket. I was like had my buff up, my hat on. I was wearing everything I owned. I had like warm gloves on. And I get down to the bottom, and there is this like fish shop, that was open. It was like 6 a.m., but it's like all these fishermen go there to get their tackle and stuff like
Oh,
that. So they were
yeah,
open, and they had coffee, and they made me some like eggs, and so I like hung out there and warmed up for like a half an hour. I will
yeah.
notice like I was kind of looking through my stats, and I had a lot of stoppage time.
Well, there's your three
But
hours right there.
I know. I was like, I could definitely make this up with just the stoppage time that I took, but
Right.
I also felt like I needed some of the stoppage time
Yeah.
too. So,
Yep. Totally.
but day two, like once I got that coffee in me, I, made it to Pacific City, and I got a second coffee. There's a really good coffee shop there called Stimulus,
Mm-hmm.
and they had really good Americano and gluten-free. This gluten-free almond cake that was so good. I got
Ooh.
2 pieces. I took a piece on the road with me.
Yeah.
And I met Matthew, which was another guy in the race. He was there, and he camped in Pacific City that night. And then we kind of like leapfrogged each other going up the Oregon coast, which was super beautiful.
Cool.
I went
Yeah.
past one of my favorite state parks in Oregon called Cape Lookout State Park. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was really, really beautiful. Like, I don't think I'd ever done that whole bike ride all the way up to Netarts Bay before.
Mm.
But we go
Yeah.
through Cape Mears and just really beautiful Oregon coast section, and the weather was a little cloudy, but it wasn't raining or anything, so
Nice.
it was nice. And then I made it to Tillamook and I was feeling like a little bit tired. It's kind of like you have to do a big resupply there because uh, it is another 80 miles to get to the next
Oh,
resupply point.
okay.
So I wouldn't have another resupply that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to get enough, yeah, to get me through uh, for the rest of the night. And it was a big section too, with two huge climbs to come for the rest of the day. So I went to Fred Meyer and kind of wandered aimlessly in the Fred Meyer. Oh, something else I'll mention is that I realized that my water filter wasn't working. It had dried out. And I recognized this the night before the race.
Okay.
But it was like just when I would put water in it, just a trickle would come through it. It was just like
Yes.
too slow and too hard. It's
Yep.
a Hydro Pack one, and I have to read
Yep.
more about it. I think I have to like I tried agitating it, and nothing was really working. So
Yeah.
I had to carry all of my water with me. I
Oh,
couldn't
because you
filter
couldn't
it.
filter. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I
Oh,
used that. It was clean inside, so I used that to carry more water in my frame bag. But I kind of was walking around Fred Meyer and I got some gluten-free Oreos. And being gluten-free, it's a little more challenging sometimes to like
mm-hmm.
find things that are appetizing and that you want to eat. And I very quickly got kind of sick of sugar, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much all I can eat that's gluten-free, except for potatoes. But the potato chips are bulky and get crummy and stuff. But I did my resupply. I also forgot my bag bomb
Oh
and they
no.
didn't have any there, so I got some diaper cream.
Yeah. Hey, I've heard that works just as well. I mean, I've
Yeah, zinc
actually heard it works
oxide.
really
It
good.
actually
Yeah.
worked really well. Zinc oxide,
It
Burt's
turns
Bees.
everything white, but
Oh yeah, I have like the opposite of skid marks on
yeah.
my chamois, whatever you call the white skid
The
marks.
white skid marks. Totally.
But like I spent some time in Fred Meyer resupplying and going into their bathroom, and I like did a nice cleanse of
Yeah.
everything and put some diaper cream on it. And I took my chamois off because I went to Denny's after that to get food
Yeah.
and kind of was chamois free for like an hour. And
Ooh,
so
the
that it
luxury.
I luxury in my with my diaper cream applied.
I love it.
But I got a scramble at Denny's and then ordered just a burger without the bun to
Mm-hmm.
go. And I bought bread at Fred Meyer, and so I like made some almond
Oh,
butter and jelly sandwiches, and then used some of the bread for the burger.
very
And I
smart.
brought that. Now it's my dinner later that night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Were you
So
loving it? Did it work really well?
it worked well. I wasn't sure if I would be able to eat it because I was starting to feel not great in the stomach.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, the other thing I realized, after the fact, when I was in Tillamook during this kind of rest stop, I turned off my InReach to save the battery, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize that when I turned it back on, I had to restart tracking. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why my tracking
Uh-huh.
stopped, which we'll get into later, since I think search and rescue was almost called.
Yes.
But I'm glad I have friends that care about me. Um,
Anytime.
yes, but that's a mistake that I won't
We
make
will get
again.
into that later. Yes.
We'll get into
Okay, but
that.
continue.
So I finally get the gumption and I get my all my food and to go and I get my bike all packed up and I left Tillamook around a little after noon. Um, and because I saw that like or not Tori, Leah, who is
Leah. Yeah.
she was the woman right behind me. She was kind of
Mm-hmm.
nipping at my heels
Yeah.
that whole day, the whole race actually. She was just entering Tillamook, so I was like, "Oh, I should get going." So I take off on the climb, and I had this big climb coming up. So I put in Hamilton. That's like my thing that I do. Here, let me turn my light on. Sorry, it's getting
Yeah.
dark all of a sudden. You see me better now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right, good. So I put Hamilton on and just start just grinding away at this like really long climb. And I get to a part, my back's kind of hurting, so I sit down on the
Mm.
side of this like gravel road. I hadn't seen anyone in a while, and all of a sudden this like truck comes down with this like older man, and he was like, the guys aren't that far ahead of you. You can catch them." And I was like, "Oh no, I gotta go my own pace." And he said, "Can I ask you how old you are?" And I said, I'm 43." And he was like, "Oh, well, you're staying young by doing this, that's for sure. Guess how old I am?" And he looked like he was in his 70s, so I was like 68, make him
Yeah.
feel good. He's like, "I'm 82."
Oh.
And I was like, "Wow, that's great. You look great. Like, what's your secret?" He was
Yeah.
like, "I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, and I have Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior." And
Oh.
I was like, "That's great."
What the
And and
sweetest little
and then I
guy.
have my girlfriend here, and we just went up to see the waterfall. And I know, and there was like nobody there, and I was like, "What?" He was like, I'm talking about my dog, of course, my schnauz." And he had a schnauzer that was like sleeping in his front seat. And so, of course, I pop up. I'm like all tired, but I pop up. I was like, "You have a schnauzer? I have a schnauzer."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was like a really cool moment, and it
That
kind of
is
got me
so cute.
motivated. But he gave me a pep
Oh.
talk. He said he'd pray for me. And I was like, "Thanks, I need it." And so then I like got
Did you
back on the
then
bike.
tell
And then
him that you were? Did you say, is it a
I
Jewish
did,
prayer?
it's so funny. I actually was like, "I'm actually Jewish." Um, and he was like, "That's great."
I love that you told him though.
He did, because he was like waiting for a response from me, and I was
Yeah.
like, "That's great. I'm Jewish." I don't
I
know, but
love it.
he prayed for me anyways, probably
That's
because I'm
great. You
Jewish.
needed all the prayers you could get.
Yeah. But anyways,
Oh.
so I continued my climb, and that climb was pretty tough. Get to the top, and I go this really long, kind of steep, pretty bumpy descent. Again,
Okay.
very glad that I had my mountain bike with my suspension
Mm-hmm.
fork. I get to the bottom, and I'm like so tired.
Yeah.
So I just lay down and I closed my eyes for like 10 minutes. And I did. I think I like fell asleep for a few minutes.
Good.
And it was just what I needed.
Yeah,
It helped
totally.
a lot. And then as I was like kind of transferring water and getting my bottles ready to go, Leah caught me.
Oh, she
She was
did.
like, "Hey, I've been nipping at your heels all day." She was like really excited. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh yeah, this is rough." She's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go filter water." I was like, "Okay, well, I think I'm gonna get going, but please feel free to camp with me if you catch me, so
Right.
that we're not alone in cougar country." And she's like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So I was like, "But you might pass me. This is some slow going for me, I think, from here on out."
Yeah.
So I left that, and again, started my climb. Still listening to Hamilton, because that's my motivation.
Yep.
And man, to the top of the last hour of that climb
Mm-hmm.
was just hike a bike. It was over
Oh,
20%.
oh my gosh.
It was so, and the whole time I was like, why are we doing this? Why does the route go this way?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh my,
I don't
like
even
for an
know if like,
hour?
it was for an hour. I don't even, I'm like, can Keegan Swenson even ride up
Well,
this?
that's
Like,
what I
I
was wondering.
don't
Is like, was
know.
anybody writing it?
I mean, I was alone. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But Ben, the night before the race, we all camped together at the
Yeah.
start. He gave a little like briefing, and he mentioned that climb. He's like, "Anyone that can ride that, I'll buy you a beer."
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's, yeah, I think
Yeah.
most people probably were hike a
Oh my
biking because it's
God.
like on a loaded, any kind of loaded
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah.
Um, there's no way that I could ever ride that on any bike,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and then maybe an e-bike.
Right.
But
Oh
it
my
was just
God.
so long and relentless, and it's just like it reminded me of the Colorado Trail.
Yeah. Yeah, were you just hiking for hours?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're almost like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stop.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Totally.
what, like 5 steps and stop.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, why? And then this is like when I first started, like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I out here? What am I doing to myself? Like, I
Oh
really had, it was like
no.
definitely my low point of the whole race.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, that's not true. I think my low point was the next day, but it was like one of my low points. And I was like, this is insane. This is so
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. Uh, but like, what else can you do? You just have to keep going.
Right. Oh my
And it
God.
and it did finally end. It always
Usually it
ends.
does.
Like I'm here now.
Yep.
It ended,
It
at some
ended.
point it did end, and I just like you had to remember that.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it was pretty tough at the time, and so I think got to the top like it was almost 9 o'clock. I
Okay.
left. So there were the two big climbs. I got to the top of the second climb at 9 o'clock. I left Tillamook at noon.
Noon. Yeah.
Like the climbs just took that long.
Wow. Wow.
So started like descending, and it was a little bit of fundulation. And my goal was to make it to mile 224 of the course. Um, and yeah, there was some little climbs here and there, so it was kind of like slow going. It was gravel. I'm out there in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, at this point, I'm like singing songs and like just making it known that I'm out there because I didn't see
Right.
anyone. And then all of a sudden, all these like 4x4s come like there's like 6 of them come out of nowhere
Oh my
riding the
gosh.
road, and they
Yeah.
pass me and they all have these like fluorescent lights on
Oh
them, like
yeah.
playing music, and I was like,
The
what
stereos.
is
Yeah.
going on? Like this is like I hadn't seen anybody in hours, and there was these like loud vehicles going the same direction as me, and I was like, oh, I wonder
Okay.
where they're going.
Yeah.
So then I'm still going, I'm going up a climb, and like it was like an hour later ahead, I see this big bright light ahead. I was like, what is that? And it was like this big bonfire.
Oh.
And I was only like a couple miles away from where I wanted to camp. But a part of me was like, well, maybe I should camp kind of near here in case like if a cougar does attack me, I could like crawl my way over to the camp and they could help me. That's kind of
Oh
like what went through my
my
head.
god. Oh my god.
Because again, I like have
This
this
is
cougar
horrible.
fear.
Yeah.
And actually, like maybe like a little bit after that, there was this right before a climb was like a 700-foot climb to get to where I wanted to camp was about to
Mhm.
start. There was like a nice little spot right next to
Oh.
the stream that was right there.
Okay.
So I stopped there. It was like a little after
Yeah.
10 p.m. And I was able to eat my burger that I brought. I
Nice.
was really happy that I was able to eat it because I wasn't sure, and you know, brushed my teeth and got my bivy out and my sleeping bag out and was about to like get tucked into bed. And then Leah and Anton and Ryan all showed up.
Oh.
And so they all camped with me
Oh,
too.
they did camp with you. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it ended up being really
Yay.
good having other people there. I felt like a
Totally.
lot. Actually slept really well. I had a really good like 5 solid hours of sleep.
Yeah. Totally. Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
And I kind of overheard them. They were gonna set their alarm for 6 a.m. and my alarm was set for like 4:30.
Mm.
But I ended up like getting up like 4:50. I kind of snoozed
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Um, but I got up and got like a little bit of a head start and
Nice.
got out first, and then again just kind of started the next day, which was day 3. And again, it's just kind of slow going and climbing up out of there, and the gravel again was just so like coarse and took just was slow going, and I was like
Yeah.
I had 130 miles to do. So day 2, I'll just like summarize. My Garmin said I did 103 miles and 8,200 feet of climbing, but I think it missed some climbing because my
Yeah.
Garmin did like the auto pause when I was biking.
Totally.
So my right with GPS said should have been 105 miles and 9,500 feet of climbing.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it was closer to that, but
Yeah, you're like,
who
let's just
knows?
say. Let's
But we'll
just
just
say
say
it
it's the
was.
bigger one. We'll say it's the bigger one. So the next day, my last day, Rabbit GPS said it was going to be 131 miles and 9,200 feet of climbing.
Dang. That's a
And
big
so
day.
so I'm starting this day and it's just like slow going and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started having some serious doubts.
Oh.
And it just was getting a little bit like that was my low point. I was like, I didn't totally cry, but it was like just feeling so sorry for myself in that
Hmm.
moment. And because just it was going so slow. And then like there was a moment where I finally exit out from this gravel onto a paved road. And I was like, oh, it's a road.
The
Like,
relief.
oh my
Yeah.
God, it feels so good. I was like so happy and elated. I was like, oh my God, things are turning around because I knew Hag Lake was the next thing. I was like, just make it to Hag Lake.
Yeah.
Like I've done Hag Lake before, like we did road racing there, back in the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, just make it to Hag Lake. And I'm like, we're on this road section at Hag Lake's Road. I'm like, maybe it's a road all the way. Of course, I didn't like look at my driver GPS to see if that was true or not. But in my mind, I was like hoping, like maybe it's road all the way. And then a left turn comes up and it's back on the gravel. And again, it's like a really steep gravel section. I was like, is he intentionally taking us on the steepest gravel roads there are in Oregon? I think this
The
is
answer
like,
is yes.
yes. I was like, what? Why are we doing this? This is insane. And again,
Oh.
I was just so tired and just didn't know if I could finish that day. I really had
Yeah.
doubts. And so I finally make it to Hag Lake, and it's a road section, and it is like it undulates. There's some little kickers in there, and
Mm-hmm.
at that point at Hag Lake, I get the message from you being like, "Hey, your dot hasn't moved in 20 hours. Are you okay?
Yes.
And please let me know." And I think you might have sent a couple
Well,
messages.
yeah, so what had happened was I sent one with the inReach, but then it said it didn't send, and so I typed a new one and put my inReach outside, but then I think they both sent. Um,
Okay.
so that's what happened. Yeah.
Okay, because I got two, and I was like,
Yeah.
"How long has you been trying to contact me?" It was at that point that I realized that my tracking was not on. My
Right.
inReach was on, but my tracking wasn't on.
Correct.
So then I got all worried, like, oh my gosh, like, did she call the alarm? Is my dad like in a helicopter on his way? What is happening? So I finally get to a place where I have service. I turn my phone
Mm-hmm.
on and I called you. And so I
Yes.
made sure that like the search could be called off. And
Okay,
then
so we're gonna stop for an intermission right here.
okay.
We're gonna, because Elisa hasn't heard this story yet, I don't think.
Okay. No.
So we're all tracking. So the fun ambassadors and I, or us, we have a text chain, a messaging chain, and we're all cheering. Elisa had shared her track leaders, so we're all, amongst our going about our business that weekend. We're like tracking you and sending you occasional cheers and all this stuff because that's what we do. And then we noticed after Tillamook, I noticed when you stopped in Tillamook, and then occasionally, like after a little while, people were like the group was like, "Has anybody heard from Aliza? Like her tracker hasn't moved for a while. Like, is she still writing?" And like we couldn't tell. And we're like, so then we just started talking like, oh, maybe her tracker just died, or maybe she left a bag behind, or like, that kind of thing. So didn't think much of it, but we're kind of like we're like on low alert status at this point. We're like, okay, like it's probably just her tracker, but like, let's keep an eye on things. So at that point, that evening, I texted Lindsay and was like, "Hey, have you heard anything from Aliza?" And no answer from her, but I figured she was probably because had vaguely remembered that she was going to be on an adventure as well. And so I
Mhm.
was like, "Well, I'm going to assume that if she was available, she would have heard something from you and she would get back to me, or she'll get back to me as soon as possible." So anyway, so then we all go to bed. And then the next morning, first thing I look, and your tracker is still at Denny's. So I was like, which I was also laughing because I was like, I put two and two together honestly because like you had also posted the picture on your Instagram. So we're all being like little sleuths, right? And we're like detective working. And I'm like, okay, well the map says Denny's and Starbucks, but the mug that she's holding says like whatever best coffee or whatever. I was like, that was not a Starbucks mug. That was definitely a Denny's mug. So she was at the Denny's. And we're all like, what? Did she like fall asleep at the Denny's? Like, what is going on? You know, like that kind of thing. Anyway, and so we start being like, I was like to Patty, I was like, babe, like, Lisa's tracker hasn't like moved, and I'm a little worried because at that point we figured that if you had withdrawn from the race, that you would have like the closest point was service, obviously was Tillamook, and that you would have let us know because you would have had like if you did withdraw from the race, you would have figured out at some point to get back to civilization, and you would have, you know, like that kind of thing. Even if you had to hike your bike, you would have made it by then, right?
Mhm.
So then by the next morning, yeah, it had been like basically like oh like almost 20 hours since we had seen you last or heard from you last, and we start really getting worried. Like at this point, we're like messaging amongst ourselves, and then Heather calls me and is like, "Okay, what's our plan of action?" Like you know how Heather is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're all like, we're worried," and so we literally like, okay, plan, and then we like dialed Deanne in. And we're like, okay. So it was like they were gonna call the Denny's and the Denny's and the Starbucks to see if they had seen
Oh my
you,
God.
and then I was gonna call Lindsay because I had texted, but I mean, I was like, maybe she missed my text, maybe, and I'll also leave a voicemail. And that's when we're like, okay, well, nobody has your dad's number, but we know, but I found him on Facebook, and so I messaged him there. Nothing alarming, just like, have you heard from her? Like that kind of thing. And anyway, so we were worried, and then like Heather is like, okay, so what's the plan? Like our next steps, like what timing do we want to give this? Like obviously we're gonna give it 24 hours, and then we call. Oh, and I had also messaged the on Instagram. I had also messaged the Odyssey, the race promoter,
Mhm.
um, and just said, hey, you know, you're out there, but I know you're probably at the finish line. But is there any chance that anybody has seen her? You know, we're assuming that it's just like a dead tracker or whatever, but just, you know, let us know if you've heard anything. And eventually they did message back, but I think it was just going off of like what your tracker was, you know, they're like, I'm sure she's fine, like da 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 da.
Mhm.
Anyway, so we were like, okay, after 24 hours, like if we really haven't heard anything, like we would call the Forest Service or like search, you know, somebody and let them know that we're concerned just to like send you out. Oh, because by then also Jess had been like, yeah, I went to look for her on whatever road it was, and she wasn't there. And so we're like, okay, well, even if she's slow going, like at some point she should be there. Again, you would have had cell service and maybe, and you would have like contacted somebody, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So we were like pretty worried by this point. And then, so I was like, oh, and I was like, I have your inReach. So I was like, but if your tracker's not on, then maybe her inReach is dead. But I was just like, I'm just going to give it a shot. So I turn on my inReach and I message you through the inReach. And then voila, you eventually message back. And I was
How
like,
long
well, no. And
how
oh, I
long
had
did it
also,
take?
it wasn't, well, let's see,
Because
it wasn't
it's
that
like
long after I messaged you.
okay.
Yeah. So, but actually, I'd also gotten, by that point, I'd also gotten a hold of Lindsay because she was just coming back into service
Mhm.
from her big adventure. And, and she was like, oh my God, what's going on? You know, like that kind of thing. And I was like, everything's fine. I just want to know if you've heard from, and she's like, well, I did get like inReach from her because we were doing inReach to inReach, but I've also been out of service, but let me look. And so whoever she was like driving with, like they were like looking at the timestamps and like saying, she's like, I have heard from her as of like this morning or whatever. And I was like, okay, as long as it's within like way closer than like when her tracker stopped, then we
Mhm.
are okay because that means that you were still alive and you were still moving beyond what your tracker had said. And so and so I texted the group and everybody's like, oh my God, thank God. And, you know, like all this stuff.
Oh my God.
So needless to say, and then, yeah, and then the inReach thing worked, and then you messaged back, and then you ended up calling me. And so, you know, everything was right in the world.
Oh my God. That was quite the intermission
But
that I did not know was happening.
yeah, you had no idea. And I was like, because eventually we took it off, you know, because you're on the original text, right?
Yeah.
And then we took it offline to like our, because I'm like, she's gonna get bombarded with like all these texts, like, oh my God, is Aliza alive?
That's really funny. I mean, I feel so loved.
Yes,
Thank you
you
for caring.
should. And And lessons
No.
learned. This is, I was like, because you did a really, I mean, we always do a really good job of like, for the most part, like you had left, obviously, like your dad had your contact information, you share, like, and with your friends and everything, it's a matter of like, there's usually, yeah, there's the track leaders or the tracker that, if a race has that or whatnot.
Hmm.
Lindsay obviously knew, you were contacting her, that kind of thing. But one thing, like for me, I realize is like, I don't think you can ever overshare with your loved ones of like how important it is that like also even because we were trying to figure out like not that we need to know everything every time about your whole existence, but like we're like okay, like itinerary wise, like if she was planning on 60 hours, so we're trying to like calculate like where you would expect to be and that kind of thing, because I also think it's important because if something does happen, it's like
Hmm.
you want to be able to the people who are trying to figure out where you are is like,
Hmm.
oh, well, if she was last at Tillamook and she expected to be here, like it really makes it much easier to deal with that situation. And then also, I was like, we also should have like our Fun Ambassadors group of like a list, like a Google Doc
Yeah,
with like our parents or loved ones
we
phone
should.
numbers. Not that I
Yeah.
would have called your dad and made him worried, but still, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh my gosh,
if it comes
yeah.
down to it.
But he would have also been, because the thing is, it's funny. I actually thought about adding you to my preset messages, because you have
Mm,
your free preset messages on
yeah,
InReach, just my check-in messages and I always did
totally.
that beginning of the end, and I have had you on them in the past.
Uh-huh.
But I took you off like for something. I didn't want to bombard you, and I just didn't put you back on. And now I know I should just always add you
I
to
mean,
it,
always have
Carrie.
it. Yeah, if we're not writing together, then you just need to always have I can be
Yeah.
your third emergency
But now you also
contact.
always now you know my inReach
Yeah.
contact,
Yeah.
and I
And it
had it
worked.
on. I had it
Yeah.
on. I just didn't have it on tracking mode,
Tracking.
which
Yeah.
lesson learned. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that I had to. Yeah, I didn't realize when you turn it off that it turns off
It
tracking. But
turns
now I
off.
know.
Yeah,
It,
totally. Now you learn something new every
yeah,
day.
so as we know.
All right, so continue with
Continue the
but
story.
when you did call, then you were definitely in a mode of what am I doing with my life? Can I go on living like this? And I
Yeah,
was like, dude, don't, because you're almost to Gaston,
yeah.
and that's can be, that's a place to like group yourself. Like I was like, don't decide when you're out in the middle of nowhere because it's easy to make these rash decisions when you are tired in the middle of nowhere and you're a little dehydrated or a lot dehydrated and you're undernourished and like just freaking tired, you know what I mean? So better to make them after you've like had a chance to kind of regroup. um
Hmm.
and that you can do more than you think you can and you'll get there because you're doing it.
Yep. Well, that was the advice you gave me. And you said, don't make any decisions. Just
Mm-hmm.
make it to Gaston, eat something. You
Mm-hmm.
said rest,
Mm-hmm.
eat, and then decide.
And then decide.
So I did. I made it to Gaston, and I found this really cute little coffee stand that had a picnic table and grassy area. I ordered coffee, and they had gluten-free scones.
It's a
So I
sign.
ordered four gluten-free scones and an Americano, and I sat and I drank my Americano and I ate my scone and I stretched in the grass. I
Oh,
did a whole stretch routine for like 10 minutes
yeah.
and it felt so good. And the sun came out. Oh, yeah, that morning it was all, I think part of the reason why I got so down is that it was raining that morning. And I
Oh,
was like, it's gonna rain all day. I don't think I can do this in the rain. Like, I was just like really talking myself out of it. But I got to Gaston, got some food, I got some caffeine, I got a nice rest and stretch, and I felt much better. And then I
good.
was like, okay, 10 more miles, I can make it to Yam Hill,
Yeah.
and then I can do the same there and then decide.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
So I did. Oh, I called Lindsay also
Oh,
in Gaston, and also she gave me a pep talk too,
good.
and that helped. But also with no
Was she just
pressure.
like, shut the hell up and get it done?
She was like, yeah,
Tough
shut up,
love.
you pussy. No, sorry, it's just a family. podcast. Sorry, but
I'll
like
bleep
no,
it.
yeah, I believe it. But no, she was very supportive. She's like, just yeah, she
Yeah.
said the same thing as you. Just like don't think until you've rested and you've had something to eat,
Mm-hmm.
and um, just do what you can.
Yeah.
She was really nice about it. No, there's no pressure.
Oh, that's good.
So I got to Yam Hill, and then again I had this really long. I just like sat in front of the grocery store there, and again I was having trouble eating again, but they had
Mm.
like bananas, so I got a banana. I got some Gatorade. I got like a yerba mate energy drink.
Ooh, yeah.
I used their bathroom. Did like a nice like washed my face and washed everything and reapplied diaper. But I was feeling much better. And and then I got a text from Jess that she was almost to Yamhill finishing her trip.
Oh,
So I was like, oh, so I like kind of got excited for that. So Jess and Garrett rolled it up as I was kind of finally getting my bike packed up and being like, okay, I think I can do this.
yeah.
But I was not, I was still feeling very glum about the whole thing because it was 1 o'clock,
Mm.
1 p.m., and I still had 80 miles and 7,000 feet of climbing to go.
Wow.
But I went in my Garmin and I looked at the climbs remaining.
Yeah.
And the climbs remaining, it was like a 1,600-foot climb, a 1,400-foot climb, a 400-foot climb, and then a bunch of smaller climbs.
Oh,
So none of it was anything near as big as what I'd already done.
yeah.
So I just kind of broke it down. And also, it was 60 miles to Sheridan, which was the last resupply. And then after Sheridan, it's like flat to get back
Right.
to finish. So I was like, just make it to
Motor.
Sheridan. It's
Yeah.
just 60. In my head, it was just 60 miles and two climbs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. I did the first climb. And again, I was really tired and I just found a spot to lay down and close my eyes again for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was just what I needed. It's
Oh,
amazing how 10 minutes can like be a difference maker.
yeah. A little dirt nap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I put on an audiobook and
Was it the
um
dragon porn one?
yes, that book is so annoying. Fourth Wing was really I thought was pretty good. Iron Flame sucks. But I hear that the third book is really good
Yeah.
again as well. So I'm
Oh,
like
okay.
just
You
forcing
have to get through
myself.
it.
And it's like it's such a long book. It's
I was gonna
like
say, weren't you on that one
20
when?
I've been doing it in sections. I keep getting like fed up with
Okay.
it. It's just
Okay.
it's such a whiny, annoying book, but I'm trying to get through it. I actually turned that book off and put a different book on because I
Okay.
couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just broke it down. And when I got to Sheridan, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I can finish. So I wanted to use, the gas station in Sheridan. A lot of these gas stations in these small towns in this part of Oregon are American markets,
Okay.
and none of them have bathrooms inside. They all have porta potties, which is very
Oh.
disappointing. But I really needed to use a porta potty, but there was someone in it. So I kind of parked my bike and started organizing, taking trash out, and this guy comes out of it looking kind of like tweaked out.
Oh.
And he had a bike as well, like a whatever small bike, but he wasn't leaving. He was like waiting for me to go into the porta
Oh.
potty. So I was like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah.
So I'm like packing things up and I was gonna throw away a bunch of Oreos and I was like, hey, do you want my Oreos? I'm not gonna eat them. He was like, oh yeah, sure. So I gave him my Oreos,
Oh.
but didn't leave my bike.
Yeah.
Did not give him my bike.
You're like, I'll give you my Oreos, but not my bike.
And so I didn't go to the bathroom. I just waited until I was
Oh.
finished.
Yeah.
But
That's
I put
motivation for
Hamilton
you
on.
to get done.
But I put Hamilton on again. My other motivation was like, okay,
Uh,
when I get to Sheridan, I can start Hamilton at the beginning, and that will get me to the finish. And it did.
it did. It got you all the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like you were booking like once it flattened out, like you were just like, I know how to do this. Like, let's just get home.
Yep. And yeah, I finished at 10:32, and
Yep.
Lindsay was there.
I was
which
there
was
in
nice
spirit.
because it was like very anticlimactic because nobody else was
Yeah,
there.
because nobody was there. I was like, I'm so glad when Lizzie told me that she was going to be there to see you finish. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad because that would just be so sad just to like,
I know.
roll across the finish line and then
Yeah.
go get in your car and go home.
So, anyways, that
Oh,
was a long synopsis, but that
no,
was,
that's great.
but I guess it was 63 hours condensed into an hour and 28
Yeah,
minutes
I think you did pretty good with one intermission.
with
So,
one intermission.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I was when for whatever reason, like I literally could not go to sleep until you were done. Like I kept
Oh,
like I like tried putting my phone down and was like sitting there in the dark and then I kept like being like, is she done yet? And then I'd like refresh, refresh and I was like, okay, forget it. I'm gonna get up and make me an egg, a scrambled egg, and because I was also really hungry. This is at 10:30 at night, and I was like really hungry because we'd eaten at like 5,
oh
and so
my
I was like,
God.
okay, I'm gonna make me some protein, and I'm gonna wait for Aliza. And as soon as I saw your dot bouncing, I was like, okay, I'm down.
I really liked your video that you did.
my my Dwight. Congratulations.
Was that just on your phone? Like
Oh, that one that I
that,
did.
yeah,
Yes.
it was
Yeah,
like
because you can
zooming in on the
you
dot.
yeah, because you can record your screen or
Yeah.
whatever, and so I was like, da, 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 da. Yeah.
I thought that was really funny.
Oh my gosh. Well, that sounds like such an epic adventure. Like I'm
Yeah,
very proud of you. So, can we talk
thanks.
about, I mean, we're long on time right now, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about like you mentioned that this race specifically, you really pushed yourself. And that's one of the things that we talked about me being a master pacer or whatever. Like, I think that I am learning that as I'm getting myself into more like ultra endurance race situations, especially on the bike, like it is hard for me to overcome that governor of like that self preservation basically is like I know how to make myself last for a very 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 long time, and sometimes I wish I could like tap into that I don't know, just pushing it a little bit more without the fear of like just coming to a crash and burn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not literally, but like, you know what I mean? Blowing up and then not having the legs to finish. Like, do you feel like you like looking back, do you feel like you push yourself in the ways that you wanted to? Would you have done anything differently? Like how did like let's talk about that.
I mean, I definitely pushed it. That first day was like that was the biggest day I think I've ever done, climbing wise for sure on a bike,
Yeah.
like 14,000 feet. That was more than Leadville.
Yeah.
And it was a loaded bike and like, gravel and everything. So, um, yeah, I definitely it was an ambitious goal, I think, for me to do that. And yeah, maybe that was too much, 'cause in a sense, just because I felt so tired and I felt like my power definitely dropped off significantly on day 2 and then even more on day 3. So I definitely slowed down a lot. And I wonder maybe if I had done a little bit less on the first day,
Mm,
if I would have been maybe a little bit faster on the second day. I don't know.
yeah.
But I also was able to do the bigger day when I was freshest. So I don't know. I mean, it's a good point, but it's funny, like going into this race, I did really want to push myself and see what it was like
Exactly.
to, and I was pushed not just physically with like the distances and the elevation, but also this was my first time ever bike packing solo and
Mm-hmm.
camping alone and being totally self-reliant and not having anyone else as a team member.
Mm.
And that was really scary for me. Is definitely outside my comfort zone. But I wanted to go there. I was really like very fearful of it for a long time of doing it, but I kind of like made the decision and I was kind of determined to like to make it happen. And I'm really proud of myself for that,
Yeah.
for doing that and overcoming that fear. And so that felt really good. And I intentionally wanted to put myself into the discomfort. And I was in
Yeah.
it. And I was like, why did I do this? In the
Why did
moment, I'm
I
like,
choose
why did
this?
I do this? And so like it's funny we talk about type 2 fun, type 3 fun, type 4 fun, type 6 fun or whatever. whatever number it was there.
Right.
um, but now that I've come on the other side, it's like, okay, like I know what the purpose of it was, like
Mm-hmm.
it was to push me and to overcome a challenge that I thought was maybe like a stretch, and it was a stretch. And
Yeah.
I wanted to see if I could persevere and do it. And yeah, I was able to. And I'm really
Yeah.
proud of that. And I'm glad that I was able to do it without, and it's always that fine line, right? Like not getting injured. Have my medical background. So I'm like, when I was feeling kind of bad, I was like, "Am I getting rhabdo?" Which is like a breakdown of your muscles, and it can
Right.
cause kidney failure and it can cause your heart to stop if your potassium gets too high. And of course, like my mind spirals into these
Uh-huh.
things. And so, it's always that line. Like I want longevity more than anything else, and I want to be healthy, long in life and be able to do these activities for a long time. So it's that balance. Like, am I pushing too far where I'm jeopardizing like my knee, my body, my health? Um, and I think I got closer to that line maybe, but I don't think I crossed it. I think I was still
Yeah.
within my limits. It just was outside of my comfort zone by far.
Totally. Yeah.
But I think that's okay. Um, it's okay to be there. And it's interesting, like Misogi, which is the sauna cold plunge business that Deanna and I started, like that's the whole principle of Misogi. It's like overcoming these challenges and having this like perseverance,
Mm.
and this like purification process. And it's like with a cold plunge, it's difficult and it's challenging to like get into it, but then you have the reward on the other side, and that just the fact that you're able to overcome that discomfort is rewarding and meaningful. And that's definitely what I think this experience ended up being for me, even though it was
Totally.
like so hard in the moment and I was really questioning it and like having my low points. Like there's always, for every low point, there's going to be a high point. And that's something too to remember in those situations. The other thing I kept thinking is like, this was kind of a stepping stone for me for doing Atlas.
Mm-hmm.
And also like I kept being in my mind, like, this is my resume builder for Atlas.
Yeah.
And like really this is the test to see like
How you
you
fare in
know
that
how I
situation. Yeah.
fare. Yeah, and Atlas, like that still scares me because it's like basically what I just did every single day but for 4 more days.
Right.
And that's really scary, but it's like, okay, like is that possible? Like I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I do want to try. I want to try to see if I can do it and to train for
Totally.
it.
Yeah.
And I have like, if there's things that I learned from this race that I maybe want to change and do differently, and maybe different
Okay.
training strategies to improve my fitness, improve my strength, improve my endurance,
Yeah.
um, bike changes, gear changes to like make things lighter. Like there's a lot of, I learned a lot in this process to hopefully help me succeed in Atlas if I get
Yeah. Yeah. You
in.
will. I will.
You will. Deanne will.
No, yeah. And
Yeah.
then we'll just tie a bungee onto you
Oh, I see why I
as
was
you pull
invited
me up the
now.
hill. Or I'm just gonna be running beside you on my. Oh, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say.
That is how it is what
There's
we
more than one
say.
way to climb a hill.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's super awesome. I love that we also got to touch base so soon after, because I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes it's a while and you forget some of the things, but like having it so fresh and like that bitterness, but also the gratitude, or you know what I mean, they'll just like the feeling of accomplishment, I think is huge. And to have that like right now is like, and be able to capture that tonight is like really awesome. So thank you for sharing your ins and outs and your diaper cream
My name. Oh, maybe
stories
TMI,
with it.
but sorry about it.
No, anything goes on this show.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, somebody's going to learn from that when they're on the boonies and they're at a convenience store and all they got is diaper cream. Well, get it. You're going to be thankful you have it. I have definitely used it
Yeah.
before as well.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, awesome. Is there anything, well, I always ask, okay, well, you just said, okay, so three things that maybe you learned from this race. It could be anything.
I want aero bars for the next
Ah,
one.
yes. Okay.
I'm having a little bit of hand numbness, but it is better than it has been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to dial in uh my kit more to um maybe take a little bit less, fewer things, maybe
Okay.
have a little bit cleaner gear setup. Maybe less. I brought a lot of like plugs and things. I was very fearful of like plugs for punctures. I was very fearful of like getting a really bad puncture and being
Yeah.
really far out there and being like alone in cougar country. And so I brought I brought a Dynaplug, like I brought the stands one, I brought
Oh my
bacon, like I
gosh.
brought three different ones. I brought super glue, like I brought suture. I was like just like so afraid. So maybe I can like not bring three plugs,
Yeah.
three different types. Um so I can like dial in maybe some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
And then I guess like the third thing that I learned, um, I don't know. I guess that it's just something I learned or something I would change about my setup or
Well, what
either.
you learned
Yeah, I learned that
doesn't have to be about.
my the mind is can do a
Yeah.
lot more than you think it can.
Yeah.
When the body feels like it can't do it,
Yeah.
you can really do a lot more than you think. And so that was
Yeah.
something that I guess I've experienced that before, but this challenged me the most, like more than it ever has before.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty special.
Yeah,
That's good. And then what were your three favorite snacks? I know you said you kind of got sick of sugar and you were kind of
I
limited,
got
but
so sick of sugar.
yeah.
I'd say the gluten-free scone,
Yeah.
the gluten-free almond cake
Nice.
was really good, and run gum.
Your run gum
That
saved the
run
day.
gum, oh my gosh, that's the other thing I would like I was like, okay, when I get to 500 feet left in this climb, I can take a run gum. Like it's something to like to look forward to.
Oh my God. For those of you who don't know, Run Gum is a tiny little tablet of gum that has how many milligrams of caffeine? It has a
I want to say
portion
it's
of
like 10
caffeine.
milligrams, but there's also other energy stuff in it
Yeah, yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's like a 5 hour
Like the
hour energy,
ginseng
but it's
chlorine
maybe
or
like it's
whatever.
like a
Yeah.
1 hour version of 5 hour energy, but in
Yeah.
gum
In gum
version.
form. Yep.
And it's mint flavored, which is nice. It cleanses the
Yep.
palate.
Yep.
Run Gum, if you're listening, I'll totally take sponsorship. I think
Sponsorship.
you're amazing.
Okay, so what sponsors do we have? We have you shouted it out to Tailfin and you shouted it out to Run
Redshift.
Gum and Redshift.
Redshift.
Yeah. We are hopefully going to Atlas, so if you're listening to this, you know, use a little gear every now
Oh
and then. So
yeah. Definitely.
awesome. Well, congratulations again. And would you
Thanks.
recommend this race to people?
I would. It is a good kind of like first race. I would definitely wouldn't do it if you've never bike packed before. I think having bike packing experience and like hike a bike experience
Yeah.
is important. But yeah, or even to tour this route, it'd be a beautiful route to tour. I definitely would
Yeah.
recommend a mountain bike or like a gravel bike with big tires on it.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful route, especially so we actually had a detour away from the Valley of the Giants because I think they were doing construction on it or something.
Mm,
But I think the Valley of the Giants will reopen next year. So if you could see the Valley of the Giants and camp in that area, that'd be really cool
yeah.
too. So
That's
touring
awesome.
parts of the northern, you can do the northern tier, the southern tier of the route too, to make
Cool.
it shorter. It's a beautiful route.
Nice. Awesome.
Hmm.
Well, anything else you want to say before we sign out?
Well, shout out to my business partner Deanne and our
Yes.
business Misogi Corvallis, which is on Instagram at Misogi Corvallis, our sauna cold plunge. Definitely a big part of my recovery and part of my general recovery is sauna and cold plunge. So yeah, shout out to
Yeah,
Deanne. Thanks
check it
for
out
everything
if
she's
you're
done for that. Yeah.
yeah, check it out if you're in
Hmm.
Corvallis, which is just a hop skipping away from Portland
Yep.
or
And
Eugene or wherever
people
you
who did the
are.
VOG too. It's only like a half an hour from Salem.
Yeah,
So.
half an hour from Salem. Very nice.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
yay. Good job, you guys.
Hey. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, well, we'll sign out for tonight. So, with that, signing out.
Signing out.